Hey, it's Kellen.
Tyson here.
And of course, AL. On this episode of Diversified Game, we're giving you the game on what you think diversity is or isn't. Let's go.
This is Diversified Game.
A podcast giving entrepreneurial advice from a diverse and inclusive perspective with Kellen.
He may agree, he may oppose, and it's more than just race, it's about, ideas.
Tyson.
When you're going against the odds, you've got to be creative, you've got to innovate, you've got to stand out.
And AL.
Focus more on execution and application and less on excuses.
So, let the game begin.
So there's this nagging thing I have about diversity and what society says it is. And society constantly tells us that we, the minorities, the underrepresented, the underincluded, are actually the diversity to any party that we go to, any company that we go to, anything like that. And that notion to me is actually not empowering at all, because that inherently means that we're in a world outside of ourselves. That means that me going to this company, everyone's and making the assumption that that company is all white or not me, which means you're telling me that I'm never in power. Everywhere that I go, I'm the one that has to be the diversity. And what I want to focus on is when we're looking at building minority-based or underprivileged-based economical structures, is realizing that when we're building our own stuff, if we're the only ones there, so if it's Kellen, AL, and myself, the hosts of this show, we're three Black males. We're not diversity amongst our own show. We own this. This is ours. No one can take this away from us. So in order for us to actually have diversity, we need to bring on a white female, an Indian male, an LGBTQAI, producer. That would be adding diversity to us. And so what I want to talk about today is how we're taking our power back and changing our mentality and the structure of which we think of diversity in.
Okay. Yeah, hey, that's deep. I mean, that's deep. I say we are diversity because at every meeting that any city has, it's about us and how do they reach out to us. So us coming together and doing it just because, three Black males, straight Black males, we are a portion of that diversity. But, in a larger scale, we're talking about diversity like in America, because if we were in, let's say South Africa, it would be on the reverse, right. And it would be, we could be colored, saying, hey, there's not enough coloreds, or there's not enough Afrikaans, or, depending on where we're at. But a lot of the rest of the world, I find, isn't really too caught up. Like, you will find Nigerians making money, doing business everywhere, and they do it because business brings diversity. A lot of times the crying and complaining is because you have a giant like Amazon that everybody wants to be a part of, a giant like Microsoft, and because it was started by some white guys, and they initially hired the people they knew, which, what surprise, were white guys, and then it just blossomed. Now everybody else wants to come and be part of something that could have been a bust. Because if Amazon was a bust, nobody would be saying, hey, you need to do diversity. So it's one of those things. So for me, it's always, let's create our own, and then we won't even have to worry about what others are doing.
There you go.
And so but that leads back to my point. Diversity is relative. Diversity is relative, and something that I found I'm going to speak particularly about the United States because that's where we all reside right now. And in the United States, we are made to feel like a minority when we look out into the world. The United States is the minority. the white people of the US are actually the minority. And when I look at the definition of minority, and I'm going to loosely paraphrase it because I'm not in front of the definition right now, but a minor is dictated as someone under the age of 18, and a minor is also then transferred over into someone who is incapable of making their own decisions, thus needing a parent or a guardian to make decisions for them. And I'm trying more and more to get away from using the word minority, because I feel like every time we say that, what we do is we place a label on whatever underrepresented or marginalized group it is we're dealing with and calling them a minority. And we're essentially, by definition, saying you're someone who needs a parent in order to make decisions for you, i.e., you're not in control of your own destiny. You don't have your own power. There's something or a system over you, which speaks to two things: either a psychological impact of the word minority in the definitions that we learned, or it's by design that we're called minorities because we're run by a government that makes decisions for us like a parent would. And so when I look at it from that perspective of relative minorityism, right, we're going to coin that. I don't think that in the scenario you're talking about, Kel, you're talking about a situation where, yes, it is predominantly white. So yes, us being three black males running a podcast and then saying, hey, we want to share this podcast into your environment, we would be a minority in that environment. But in our microcosm of this podcast in and of itself and what we talk about, and then seeding it out to our listeners, we're not the minority because this is ours. We're three black men. So we need to implant someone else, and actually they would become the minority within our business structure. That's what I'm looking at. And when I frame it like that, I look at it in one of your favorite people's eyes, Dame Dash. You the boss. You make the decisions. You're the one who runs the business, and that's taking the power back, running the business, and then saying, no, this can't technically be a minority-owned business, but it is in the scope of the United States because we are still the minority of the population, as they would have you statistically say or percentage-wise say. But when it comes to running this business, we're not a minority; we're the majority of our business. And so someone else who's different from us coming in would actually be a minority to us. And that's the mind frame, I feel like, when you look at Black business ownership, Native American business ownership, Latino or Latinx business ownership. If we can adopt that mentality of we're not the minority within our own businesses, we need to inject a minority into our business, and we're doing, quote unquote, doing them a favor by including them in our business. It's a mental shift in power. We're in the driver's seat. We're now making our own decisions, and starts to break us out of that minority by definition type of thing. You know what I mean?
No, I got you. I got you.
Yes.
Yeah, true that.
True that.
Go ahead, A.
I mean, this is on topic, but we're going to take a slight left on this road. This goes directly in line with like the use of words and the images that are paired with those words. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm not sure if I was talking to you guys about this, but for quite some time, like you made mention of minority. So like minority, interestingly enough, has been spun into being associated with primarily Black people.
Right.
And I'm jumping around, but you'll start to see the connections in a bit. And like a lot of people started to get hip to this. I remember some time ago, Richard Sherman, was a bit concerned about how the media was perceiving him and portraying him in terms of his appearance. And he brought up a very sensitive subject in terms of, people replacing the N-word with the word thug as I guess the safe word amongst people to say this as opposed to saying that without getting in trouble.
The dog whistle or coded language?
Yes.
Is the term, I think it is, dog whistle or coded language. Yeah.
And it's really magical in a sense, and how people load up these words and rile up other people based on the language that they're using. It can be very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree 100%, because what happens with language is that we can be technically correct, but when we deliver it, it's the intent that comes behind it.
Right.
And that's what people are getting and sensing, and that's why rhetoric nowadays is such a loaded term. When you look at it, they're like, oh, don't use dangerous rhetoric. You're using dangerous rhetoric. And the person goes, well, I just said this. And it's when you just say this and that's your defense, 9 times out of 10, you know what you said. And you know that why you said it that way. You want it to trigger certain people. And I'm not going to get into it because AL still hasn't watched what is it? The
trigger
killer,
warning.
trigger warning with
I got
Killer
you
Mike.
I got you.
Yeah, he still hasn't watched it, but and something we always talk about is triggered marketing. By the way, but it's the same thing. You're using the words to get the reaction out of certain people, and you're triggering them. You're pulling them in. You're using that dog whistle language or that coded language to rile up the ones that it's meant to rile up. The ones who are going to get it are the ones who are going to get it. And it's the same thing with like Pusha T when he has a song, when you know, you know. It's the same thing. If I walk into a room and I use some slang terminology, I don't even know what one I could think of right now, but to someone who, all right, let's go like John. John is a regional term in the DMV area. If I want to know if you're from the DMV area, if someone tells me, "Oh yeah, you got to meet so and so. They're from, from Maryland, from Philly, from whatever," and I'm like, "Oh, what up? You see them Johns over there?" And they don't know what I'm talking about. I have to question whether or not you're really from there. But that would be my dog whistle, my coded language. And let's just say that other person is from, the Ukraine, and they're talking to this person. The person's like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Philly. I'm from this. I'm from that. I'm doing da 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 da." And I use that language. Now that person from the Ukraine wouldn't know that I just sent out a dog, quote unquote, from the DMV area, right? Or Baltimore or anywhere like that. They wouldn't know that because they're from the Ukraine. They're not hip to the slang that they use in that area or the words that the vernacular, whatever you want to say. That person should be being from that area. So that would be an example of a dog whistle where it's like, well, I don't see if I go, yo, you don't know what that is. You don't get what I'm saying. And and the person from the Ukraine would be like, I don't get why you're, what's the problem here? He's from the DMV. Like, what's the problem? Do you not like people from Maryland? No, this dude's not from Maryland. This dude's not from DC. He's not. No, he's not. He doesn't know what John is. He doesn't know. JAWN. Look it up. If he doesn't know, I used something he should know. He doesn't know it. I'm telling you, he's not from there. And then you go on to find out, well, he moved. He was born there, and then quickly moved to Connecticut, and had not been back since. We need to get specific. Then you were born there. You weren't raised there. You're not really from there. You're from Connecticut. You were born in DC or Maryland. You know what I mean?
Right. Word up.
So that's the same when we talk about rhetoric and language. People don't understand that language signals so many things that are sometimes under the radar when you're not the one who's supposed to get it. So for you, it's just words. For me, it's everything that goes behind that word that you can't fathom to see because you're not of it, you're not from it. And that's where we get dangerous in the society. That's where we get dangerous with talking about racism, talking about colorism, talking about all the sexisms, feminisms, all that, because every ism has their own dog whistles. One dog whistle goes to the person it's meant to insult, and the other dog whistle goes to the person who you're trying to get to join your side to insult that person. And anyone who doesn't get those, anyone who's in between, they're throwing their hands up, not understanding why that person is offended or why this person is gaining a following from using said words. We have to get those people that are in the middle, which Dr. Martin Luther King would have called the moderate racist. We can use the moderate sexist. We can use the moderate colorist. We can use the moderate homophobic, whatever. It's that person in the middle that has to humanize themselves and find their side.
Well, you know, that language, though, is not just language. We could take it straight from the headlines where those MAGA hat cats were that smirk with that guy, the Indian veteran, the Native American veteran. And that even that smirk, I've knocked that smirk off so many cats' face. You know what that smirk is, you know, and after you knock it off their face, they're always quick to, we're going to call the police or whatever the case may be, you know, but that smirk, they know what that is. So you have to either,
AKA, gotcha, nigga. That's what that smirk, like, let's just be real clear. It's got you, nigga. Like, it's one of them.
Yeah. You know, because if he, even at 70 or whatever, how old he was, if he would have just, you know, wiped that smirk off the face, he would have been the bad guy. Absolutely. He would have been the instigator. He would have been all those things. But we know what that smirk is, and they know too. And that, you know, and only a real racist does that kind of stuff. You got to be a real coward because you're with all your people. But we know what that smirk was, and it's the same smirk every time they get over. You know, because they're on that racism that, we think we're better than you, or we got you, the cameras are on, but in private we know they don't. You know, Martin had that joke about it. Okay, you where the toothpaste is, can you read? Toothpaste. But if a gang of us come through, you're ready to walk us down the road, and that's not, you know, all white folks. That's just what we're talking about, racist people, you know, and yeah, so it's more than just the language, it's the body language,
the subtle cues, and that's why I try to express this to most people. You know, so in some languages the term ito it means like little boy, it means like little something, like, you know, a kind of not dismissive, it's like dismissively endearing. So if I call you Junito, in some languages and to some people, that would be a term of endearment, right? If you're the junior of your father and he calls you Junito, like, that's a term of endearment from your father. But if I'm a grown man to a grown man and I call you Junito and you and I rub your head, that's fighting words. That's enough. Yo, you're calling me son, like you're calling me your little kid. You're calling me your inferior. So that's where I'm like, there's all of that stuff to try to connect to someone to say what may not trigger you. Think about the thing that triggers you, that everyone stands around you and goes, I don't know why you're so mad about that. I don't understand. I don't get, why is that a problem? It's just this, or it's just that. He just smirked at you. Like, what does a smirk mean? And it's like, it's that when you know, like, you can tell when it means something else, when it's not that term of endearment, when it's not that smirk like we're laughing together, but it's a smirk like I got over on you, or if it's the smirk that is meant to incite you, and if it incites you, then that's how I win. But if the smirk doesn't work, I at least got to get away with the smirking at you, and you knew what I was trying to do. You didn't play into it, but you knew what I was trying to do. So I even get a victory there, because now subtly I can call you a coward. Subtly I can say he's not really that serious about his cause. So, you know, even when you're being the bigger person in some of those situations, there's still a subtle loss of dignity trying to be given by the other person. And people miss that. And bringing up the kid with the MAGA hat, like even wearing the MAGA hat in certain instances, people know that that's a trigger. And they'll sit there and say, "Well, I can't wear a hat." It ain't got nothing to do with the cloth on your body, bro. It has nothing to do with the cap that you're putting on your head. And it's the same heat that Kanye caught. It's nothing to do with the hat. You wear hats all day, Kanye. That hat stands for a certain message, a certain belief system, a certain level of intolerance of others that is not okay, which it sounds wild hypocritical when you say it, that we won't accept someone because they don't accept others, right? It's like, shouldn't we be accepting of that person, like, still? And it's like, but you have to draw the line somewhere. I can be forgiving and still not be okay with you living after you murdered one of my relatives, right? I can still do that. I can be against murder. I can be against killing. I can be against any unspeakable crime and still be like, yeah, I would let the death penalty slide. Like, I'd let that rock on that person. Yeah, I'd let that rock. Right. Because there's a certain cost and there's a certain punishment with actions you take. So when you're wearing something and you may not be partaking in a hateful act sometimes, like this kid was blatantly trying to pull some stuff, but sometimes if you're walking down the street with a MAGA hat and you're just walking by people, you're buying your groceries. I did see a video where the guy was just buying his stuff at the store. Like, he wasn't causing a ruckus or anything. And one of the employees came over and was like, "Nah, you got to leave. We don't serve you here." And he's like, "What? I'm getting toilet paper. I'm trying to buy my stuff. Like, I'm not causing any trouble, nothing like that." He's like, "Oh no, but you're wearing that hat. I do feel like we need to draw a line with that. If that person is not doing anything like that, like, people still deserve the right to live and to be able to shop, buy, whatever. We can be allowed to have disagreements with each other, and I don't have to agree with everything that person says or does. Just like I don't have to agree that, aqua colored hair looks good. I don't have to like that, but that's not a reason not to serve you. I don't have to like.
I saw a guy with the Klan. It looked like the.
Huh? I was gonna say I don't have to like your gang tattoos, but that doesn't mean I can't serve you a burrito at Chipotle. You know what I mean? Like, but as long as you're not up in there gang banging actively while you're ordering your burrito, like, you can't be up in there flashing signs, homie, what it is, doing all this stuff. You see someone, you drawing your hand back like it's a gun. You can't do that stuff while you're in my Chipotle line getting a burrito.
No, that's discrimination. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah. Like, but if you just want to come through, get a burrito, your blood, and you happen to like the carne asada here, you happen to like it, you can roll through the line, and then once you hit that door, you go back and do whatever you do. If you're a Hell's Angel, you pull up respectfully, like, come through, because they're a gang. Come through, get your burrito, go out into the world. But if you're in my line starting trouble, you gotta go. So there's that level of liberalism that I feel like needs to be addressed on just because they're wearing something you don't like or don't approve of, that doesn't mean that you can't still allow them to be a patron, as long as they're not actively doing something to you, actively disrupting your business or your day. There's no reason why a 2-minute transaction should transpire into a viral video. There's no reason for it, because that actually ends up making the liberal side look way crazier than the guy who's wearing the MAGA hat trying to buy toilet paper. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's. I saw a guy with the Klan. It looked like the Klan emblem, but it was like an old beat up truck. And I'm like, is that the Klan? But it's in a McDonald's. parking lot, and I'm like, I mean, he likes McDonald's,
right?
The same way, same way I've seen, and the same way I've seen skinheads, on their bikes with their skinhead stuff, and Nazi lowriders, which are Nazis, but you can actually be part Hispanic to be in the Nazi lowrider gang,
right?
And be dating so to each his own, as long as nobody's bothering you, hey, wear what you want, be a dog, I'm in Seattle, folks, grown men in dresses, and they're 6'5", 250 solid with beards. What you gonna do? You ain't
right,
gonna say
right.
You're gonna be like, you look mighty good in that chartreuse.
Right, word up.
Do you have a heel? You have a heel to match that? Because I know a store.
Keep it moving, because I don't care. Folks are all from the South. You flip out. Like what men in dresses, and I would do that. No, you wouldn't do that. Not with the cats you see here practicing MMA every day.
Right. They got cauliflower. They got cauliflower ear and a matching bag. Don't do it. Right. Don't get messed up out here behind your false views. I never understood that, and I know we're kind of off the this isn't the diversity you're looking for type of thing. But when I look at lifestyles that people choose, my whole thing has always been, and I'm gonna censor it for here, what you sex doesn't make me nut. Like, so why do I care if that man wants to wear a dress, as long as he's not trying to get me to put it on? Like, go about your day. Now, if he turns to me, 260 pounds, 300 pounds, 6'5", and tells me, boy, you about to wear this dress, now we have a problem. Now I have a reason to be like, yo, this is not about to happen. I don't care how big you are. You're not about to tell me that I got to put on a dress for you. This is not prison, okay? I am free.
Yeah, I was gonna say that only happens in one area. Ain't nobody walking down the street.
Right. And the thing about it is, like, in prison, it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, if you're doing a bid and you're gonna be in there, you're gonna see him again eventually. So it's one of those things where it's like, do I outlast this ass whooping, or do I just get one? It's one of those, you gotta weigh your options. You want to fight every day? And I feel like that's the decision that a lot of people have to make when they get into prison. But that, again, is another episode. But then, and you look at, if someone is gay, lesbian, pansexual, and not even to say that I believe this is okay, but there's a guy who married a horse, right? Like, he went and did that. The horse seemed happy, he liked he liked it, so he put a horseshoe on it. I don't know what to tell y'all. But like, do I really care that this man is married and sleeping with a horse? That's not my horse. He's not my man's. And I mean man's isn't like friend. I don't know him. You know what I mean? Like, whose man's is this? He's not my man's. Like, I don't know him. I don't have to be around it. The horse isn't coming and sleeping with me now. Like, he's not trying to get me to be in a polyamorous relationship with this horse. Why does it matter? And he's not even going to be able to have kids. So it's not like he's going to procreate and create a half man, half horse, like centaur running around. And now I got to worry about, like, is it going to be centaur people out here just, trying to mate with everybody? Like, what is really the problem at the end of the day? Not saying I condone it. I'm just asking, what is the problem at the end of the day with that? Like, what is it that makes someone else so angry about that when it's not their horse and not their man's?
I don't know. You went deep on that with I'm trying to with the centaur thing. I'm like, do people really think that?
He said, I was watching Xena the other day too. Like,
yeah. I mean, I mind. I'm from the Bay Area, so we learn to mind our business and keep it moving. Or maybe that you're jealous is the thought. If you think about it too hard, maybe you're like a pastor or a priest, a wayward one, and you're preaching about it, wishing you could enjoy the fun. I don't know.
That's always been my thing.
Yeah.
I think that people are, like, low key on some. This man was brave enough to do that. I was looking at Mr. Ed like he could get it. This man went and did it. like, ooh, man, like, ooh, and he taking all the backlash from society. Ooh, I'm so mad at him. Ooh, because Mr. Ed dead now. I can't even get it. But I'm just gonna be mad at this person for going for it. You know what I mean? And by the way, the reason why I brought that up, one, I did see, I remember that from like 2020, like years ago. But when I was stationed in South Carolina, in Charleston, there was instances of naval sailors, and they were sodomizing the horses out there, and it was like a big, it was a big epidemic on the base. So like, it's crazy to me. And I look back on that time and I'm always like, why did they, I mean, you're like, they're, government property stuff, but I'm like, I mean, one, I didn't know why they were doing it, but two, I was like, I mean, is this really that big of a deal? Like, is the horse traumatized? Like, I don't know what, like I was like, why, I get that it's wrong, but like, it morally reprehensible, but at the same time, I was like, why is it wrong again? I was like, the horse isn't married to anybody. I don't know whether the people were married, because that would have been a problem, because in the military, you're not supposed to commit adultery and things like that. So I guess if you were married to a human and you slept with a horse like that, that would be adultery. So I could see that.
I say our audience is going to range. I mean, we're going to have people coming in like, hey, thanks for the support. I've been struggling with this for a long time. Let's flip it back into normal.
I'm just wondering about it, because like,
I'm using that. Y'all got that.
I'm not worried about that.
Like, in life, I'm not even thinking about.
Not saying that I want, like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm interested in bestiality, but like, it's one of those, it's an extreme example to say, what is it that makes people so upset about other people's lifestyles that they don't even have to be a part of or be around, or they're not being forced to be involved with? Like, what is really the issue? And it's like, it takes that extreme an example. Just like, you're like, I don't want to go anywhere near, I don't need to know nothing about it. That's cool. Like, I like that. That's fine. Like, that's kind of how I feel with people's lifestyles in general. That mentality when it comes to the basics of, hey, we're in a polygamous relationship. As long as that dude's taking care of his 6 wives, kids, they're living comfortably, happily, no problems. Even if there is problems, regular couples have problems. Like, so what, like, why is it that we frown so heavily upon that, or frown so heavily upon polyamory, or frown so heavily upon, even some people, interracial relationships really get under their skin? And I know there's other reasons behind why it gets under their skin. That's cool. But at the end of the day, if you weren't going to marry that person and that person wasn't going to marry you, why do you care that they ended up with someone else? Like, they were going to end up with someone else. It wasn't going to be you anyway. So why are you so strapped about it?
To simply answer that, it's just society norms, what you believe in. And, some of that is people are worried that you're going to come to the banquet dinner with a horse and stink up the whole place, or a stinky, cat, or dog, or peacock, or whatever. And
the peacock would be fly, though. That peacock would be dressed to the nines, my bro.
The peacock actually talk to it, and shit past the butter. It's just, it's like I don't, when I'm on a plane, I don't want to even sit by any animals. I'm highly allergic. Right. I'm telling everyone that first class, move me to first class. Because I don't want to be around a dog. I don't even want to be around people who are farting, right? And I mean, so get me away, because I've already paid for the comfort ticket. With the extra leg room, if there's a big dog or whatever, move me or move them, because now you have people are the problem. If you are allergic to something on a plane, a bus, grocery store, they want you to move because the animal is a comfort animal and, you know, this, and this. So, you know, we just got to keep things in perspective. And it's just, you know, norms, whatever norms are. But at the end of the day, I could care less about any of that. I just don't want to see it. Please don't bring it to my house. And I really don't do weddings, so no need to invite me. No matter what it is.
No matter what it is.
No matter what it is, you got to be
tight. I'm probably not going to be at your wedding.
Yeah, I think everybody should go to the courthouse, wait a decade, and then let's have a wedding and see what the deal is. You know,
right.
But
so
that's my thing. I'm
a
weirdo.
I mean, I mean, I don't think that's too weird. I think that, you know, marriage, different stroke, different folks. Some people want a tiny knot, and some people want to tie the knot. You know what I mean? So, what. You know, I guess to bring it back to the, you know, this isn't the diversity you're looking for. The whole mind trick of everything in this is switching your perspective. And I guess it's going from almost a victim-like mentality to a victor kind of mentality in the way that we look at diversity and inclusion. Even like when we start our own, then we're the ones that are now looking for diversity. When we're looking to be a part of someone else's, we're looking to be the diversity, and that's just the ownership difference.
Maybe this is another episode, gentlemen, but I'm just going to leave this thought. We don't have to answer this on this episode, but you know me. I like to think, thinking a little bit. Maybe I think a little bit too much, but. Is considering all that we talked about on this episode, is diversity inclusion this era's desegregation?
So I think this is a good place to stop our dialogue for this episode and allow you, the listeners, to join the conversation and keep the dialogue going with us online.
You can do so by visiting our social media at Facebook, Diversified Game Podcast, on Instagram and Twitter, Game Diversified, online, diversifiedgame.com. In your life with the people around you, and or join our Patreon and get some nice perks for being involved.
If you found a nugget and or liked today's episode, you might as well leave a review. And if you leave a review, you might as well share it. If you share it, you might as well subscribe. And as always, thanks for your support.
Thanks for getting in the game and listening to the Diversified Game Podcast with Kellen, Tyson, and AL. The #1 show pairing entrepreneurship with diverse and inclusive perspectives like wine and cheese, bagel and lox, fish and grits. Be sure to visit diversifiedgame.com for all the good stuff. Join in the conversation and discover more content.